Hi, everyone. Jason here from the UTeach CS team at the University of Texas at Austin. And welcome to From Pixels to Prompts, how ChatGPT was born in 7 acts. Now, this is to be used as a teaching tool in the classroom. It is important for your students to understand the history of ChatGPT. How did it get created? What is the technology behind it? So that we can show them the ethical way of using AI in their daily lives and in the classroom. So I want to take you through this story. Now, there is a link to this PDF in the YouTube description, and feel free to copy this content and use it however you want. You can copy it into ChatGPT, you can make up an assignment, but let's dive right in and talk about how the heck did ChatGPT just suddenly appear in our lives, and how did it upend everything? So let's start off by talking about the main players involved in this story, because we all know about OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. But really, the story of ChatGPT is a Google story. And then in the end, it becomes a Microsoft story. So the real powder keg moment for ChatGPT, and that happens in 2012. Okay. And it starts with something called AlexNet. Okay, now AlexNet was a neural network, but before we talk about neural networks, we need to back up. Okay, you see, because neural networks had been around since the 1950s, and neural networks are kind of what it sounds like. It's inspired by how the brain works. Okay, but even though they had this concept of neural networks, it was kind of put on the shelf because it didn't have the power or the computing processing power in order to do neural networks the right way. And then in the 1980s, backpropagation was created. And when that did is it made neural networks faster. But it still needed two things in order to work correctly: a lot of data and a lot of power. Okay. And by power, we mean processing power, energy, just faster computers. So basically, neural networks drag on until the year 2012, when a graduate student at the University of Toronto, Alex Krichevsky, basically has a good old fashioned moment of ingenuity. Now, he is building a neural network that is part of what they call the ImageNet competition. Okay, it's really simple. They feed images into a computer, and the computer has to identify the object. All right, but what astounds everyone in 2012 is that Alex's program, AlexNet, was an absolutely huge leap forward. All right, it cut the error rate from 26% to 15%. And even though that might not sound like a lot, it was a monumental achievement. And what made it even better is the story behind it. You see, Alex lived at home with his parents, okay? And he needed to build his neural network. But he realizes that he can't just keep using the same processors that they sell off the shelf, okay? It just doesn't work. He needs to get creative. All right. So what he does is he goes to his local computer store and he buys two NVIDIA GTX 580 graphic cards. Okay. That's right. That NVIDIA. And we'll get to them in a minute. All right. And he buys these two graphic cards and he installs them on his desktop computer at home and he starts to train it. And really, what he does is he's revolutionizing AI and neural networks at that moment, because he is showing everybody that you don't need regular processors. You can use graphic cards. You know, those really cool computers that have the fluorescent lights and you can see inside them, and they have those NVIDIA chips and they run high end gaming platforms? Those can be used. All right. And AlexNet uses these graphic cards and he trains his net to do something that has never been done before. He has 8 layers, over 60 million parameters. These graphic cards could do math the way he needs them. And he was training them on two parallel training cards, okay? Parallel, side by side. And that's basically the moment that sparks everything. And you could see that it starts off and it sets us down to the path that we're at today. All right. AlexNet is that groundbreaking model. Okay. It is a historical milestone in deep learning. And then NVIDIA is going to become the most valuable company in the world. all because of what this kid does in his parents' basement while he's hooking up two NVIDIA chips to build a neural network. All right. So this is how the story starts. This is the moment. Okay. AlexNet, the moment that changes everything. So if you're Alex and his team, okay, where do you go now that you've created this model? Well, we'll get there in 1 second because it's not going to be a surprise where most of these scientists wind up. And that's at a company called Google. So let's let's bring Google into the picture here. Now, I'm going to jump into the Google story in 2006 because this is all intertwined with AlexNet, neural networks, deep learning. Okay. See, Google buys YouTube in 2006, and people have no idea why they bought YouTube. Think about what YouTube was like in 2006. Okay. Basically, it was a place that people uploaded videos to. All right. You would link to these videos in your website. Okay. There was just a search bar, and YouTube had copyright infringement everywhere. All right. So YouTube is growing tremendously. They need somebody to buy them. They need somebody who can really dig in, fight the copyright, the legal battle, has the processing power to do this. So Google steps in and they buy YouTube for $1.65 billion. And at the time, Google bought them for one reason and one reason only. It was because they wanted to organize the world's data. And what better way to get data than to just buy the biggest video sharing site on the internet? All right. Because Google sees that this data can be used in order to, in the future, train neural networks and algorithms. So, first they buy YouTube, then they introduce Google Maps, Gmail, Google Drive, Android phones, Google Search, finally the Chrome browser. And basically, Google is putting a monopoly on all your data. And this monopoly is going to come back and help them out tremendously. All right. Because Google realizes in 2012, 6 years after buying YouTube, that the AlexNet project could be the key to unlocking billions and billions of dollars for Google, and in particular, YouTube. You see, because now today we go to YouTube, and what's the first thing we land on? Our homepage. When you go to Facebook, where do you go? Okay, to your feeds. Instagram, TikTok, you go to your feeds. All right, we talk about the algorithm, the suggestions it gives you. Well, all of those algorithms are all going to be powered by neural networks. And this is where the AlexNet technology is going to wind up. So the three main scientists involved at AlexNet, all right, Alex Krizhevsky, Ilya Sutskever, and Jeffrey Hinton, they're all going to wind up at Google, or they're all going to start their own companies and get purchased and brought into the fold at Google. All right. So Alex is going to join Google. All right. Everyone joins the team. All right. And then the scientists spin off and they start their own company called DeepMind, Google Brain. And in-house, this is where Google is developing their neural networks. And you could start to slowly see it seeping into Google products. Like, remember, you used to just type stuff into search? And then all of a sudden you started typing letters into search and it would kind of predict what words you were going to type in. And it made search even easier. And all of these features were kind of being developed behind the scenes from DeepMind and Google Brain. And that's where all these neural network scientists had ended up. All right. So what's the story here? Well, the story is all these social media networks and Google with YouTube, they realize that the way to making a fortune is through advertising. And that if we can use these deep neural networks in order to create feeds in our products, we'll be able to keep people engaged longer. And if they're engaged longer, we can advertise and feed them targeted advertising longer. And this is how these scientists make millions and millions of dollars and become rich. They start getting hired by Facebook, by Instagram, by TikTok, and they start to create your feeds. And God, does life get great for us, right? Now you have all these algorithms suggesting what you're going to like, and man, they are good. All right. So this goes on till about 2017. Okay. And then in 2017, Google once again reinvents the wheel. Okay. Now they already realized that deep neural networks were going to be great for YouTube recommendations. But they realized that, well, what if we applied the same technology that we were using to recommend these feeds that we applied to images and video? What if we applied it to language? Okay. And Google will always point out to anyone who mentions Chat GPT that the T in GPT stands for transformer. And transformer was invented at Google. And it was introduced to the world in a paper called Attention is All You Need. Okay. And in this paper, okay, Google lays out a really big problem. And they say, now computers can recognize images, but that's really easy. But to understand human language with all its grammar, slang, and context, now that's going to be hard. So, how does this work? And I don't like to get into technical stuff. If you want to learn the technical stuff, I provide links in the documents for you to learn more. But basically, the transformer uses self-attention, okay, which lets the model look at all the words in a sentence and at once. So it looks at all the words in the sentence at once and then figures out which ones relate to each other. For example, in the dog chased the ball because it was fast, the model learns that it refers to the ball. Now, transformers become the foundation for models like BERT and ChatGPT. They're fast, they're scalable, and they're great at understanding meaning. Okay? So you take this model, you take the NVIDIA chips, you take neural networks that now have sequences in parallel. And basically, you can use long text. Okay? And this is the technology that is going to underline ChatGPT. Okay? So some of you might be sitting here going, well, how did Google blow this? How did Google not become ChatGPT? Why are they catching up? And they are catching up, but they do have a huge lead in the fact that they have all the processing power they need and they invented the technology. All right. And now they're going through like a battle with Facebook and with OpenAI trying to keep all the intelligence, the scientists that are programming these algorithms. All right. But then why does OpenAI get created? Okay. How does ChatGPT enter the game? Well, here's what happens. Okay. In 2015, when people start to realize that this artificial intelligence has the potential in the future to really just be bad for humanity. All right. It has the power to do a lot of different things. All right. So the goal was to build artificial intelligence in a way that was safe, transparent, and beneficial to humanity. So believe it or not, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and a bunch of other people, they actually start a not-for-profit organization called ChatGPT. OpenAI actually is what it's called. ChatGPT is going to be the first GPT that they release publicly. And OpenAI stated goal was, we want to be the good guys in the room. We want to control this so that it's good for humanity. All right. Right now, ChatGPT is trying to become OpenAI, excuse me, is becoming a publicly traded company valued at $500 billion. They are no longer looking to become a not for profit. They're trying to wiggle their way out of that legally and without looking really bad. All right. So, what they do is they adopt this transformer model. All right. And they basically start to understand the patterns in language. All right. Now, they train their models and they release it to the world. All right. And it storms the world. I mean, it's pretty hard to think of a technology that stormed the scene like ChatGPT. I like to think go back to Napster, when Napster first jumped into the scene and made sharing digital music so easy, and so illegal, kind of similar to what's going on here. And we'll get into the copyright infringement in a minute. But basically, they release this for free. It takes off and it goes viral. All right. So basically, ChatGPT is released, and incrementally over the years, it becomes better and better and more accurate. And now OpenAI is trying to shift from a not for profit to a capped profit model because they want to cash in. Okay. So OpenAI kind of had this altruistic vision and mission. And now they're kind of just trying to be the next Google, the next Apple, the next big publicly traded company. All right. And they have competition. Okay. Other, AI companies have stormed onto the scene. All right. One of the biggest is Anthropic. They have a ChatGPT competitor called Claude. Claude is better at doing long documents, but most people still think ChatGPT is better. There's also Grok by X is another model. So there's a lot of models. All right, but here's the problem. Okay, the problem is all these companies have rushed in to AI. They're investing billions and billions of dollars. And recently we discovered something. 95% of these companies are not making any money from their AI investments. Why? Why are they not making any money from their AI investments? Well, for a number of reasons. Okay. The first reason is like any technology, we're really just going to wind up with two or three big players in the space. And that's just life, right? Um, we could have 20 airlines in this country, and then eventually they consolidate down, and we wind up with three, right? If we're lucky. You know, it's like that with everything. So even though right now we have all these companies rushing in to say, use my AI, use my AI, use my AI, in the end, there's really just going to be two AI players, and we're just going to use their AI to do stuff. All right. Now, one of the other really big problems with AI, and they can't get this fixed right now, and it could be like the thing that just doesn't work out, where the technology just never gets adopted. Remember self-driving cars? We were all supposed to be being driven around by our cars right now. We weren't supposed to be driving. We're all still driving, right? Shockingly, cars are bad. When things jump in front of the road, they can't stop themselves, just like people can't stop them. All right. AI is confidently wrong, which means it's wrong and it wants to sound like it's right. And even if it's wrong, it won't apologize for being wrong. So, like, for example, on the AP CSP exam, students can use AI to do the create performance task. And I asked AI to write me a paragraph that I'm going to share with my students on the uses of AI on the create performance task. And the first thing it says is AI is not allowed it on the AP CSP exam. Students will not be allowed to use ChatGPT or any other chatbot on the exam. Really? That's 100% wrong. So when I actually said to ChatGPT, you're incorrect. According to the CED, page 210, they can use AI. Now, the AI didn't apologize. It didn't say, hey, sorry, my bad. It just said, oh, you're right. Do you want me to redo it that way? It's confidently wrong. Okay. There is nothing more dangerous than a person who's confidently wrong than an AI that is confidently wrong. All right. So until they can work out these issues, okay, um, it's going to be hard to get AI to do all the things that they want it to do. But it's already good at a lot of things. Okay. So the cat's already out of the bag. But whether it's going to go the full distance and be the absolute perfect thing that everyone thinks it's going to be, I don't know about that. All right. So if 95% of the people are failing, who's winning? Well, I kind of told you that this is more of a Google story than a ChatGPT OpenAI story. Well, we're about to shift because in the end, the big winner is Microsoft. Yeah, that Microsoft. Windows 95 Microsoft. Blue screen of death Microsoft. Bill Gates, 1990s. How is Microsoft the winner here? So we were talking about how OpenAI wanted to go from this not-for-profit organization to this capped model where they can become one of the most valuable companies in the world. All right. So this has a lot of drama behind it, and it's really good. So let's get into it. So in November 2023, out of nowhere, OpenAI says it's firing Sam Altman, its CEO. All right. And this move triggers absolute chaos. Okay. OpenAI's president resigns, and over 700 employees threaten to quit. They are all backing Altman. All right. Now, what happened? Okay. Well, this is where it gets fun. Okay. Now, behind the scenes, Sam Altman is in a power struggle with OpenAI's board because OpenAI's board basically doesn't want to become this publicly traded company. The true message here was to be humanity's guardian of AI. But that's not what Sam Altman wants, and they oust him. They say he's not being totally transparent in his motivations behind the company. But behind the scenes, there's a bro culture, right? The tech bro culture. And Sam Altman has a very good friend, and he is the CEO of Airbnb, who's also very tight with Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft. So the CEO of Airbnb reaches out to Microsoft and says, hey, Sam Altman has got the president's backing, he's got the employees' backing. They fired him. Why don't you hire him? Hire him, have him lead a new AI division at Microsoft. You guys have the processing power he needs. You guys have the money that he needs. This is a perfect marriage. All right. And Microsoft jumps in and they immediately say, hey, we're starting a new AI division and we are putting Altman and Brockman in charge of it. And OpenAI freaks out. They reverse course 4 days later. They reinstate Altman. Microsoft is now a member of the OpenAI board, and the people who tried to push out Altman leave. Boy, is that not great drama? So Microsoft invests $13 billion. Okay. This partnership gives them a huge AI infrastructure advantage, and they are now able to integrate AI directly into their products. Now, think about what I just said. Okay. If you use Google Drive and Google products, they're free. But if you're at work and you're using Microsoft, your company's paying for it. So Microsoft already had this huge list, like this huge database of clients, huge clients. The biggest companies in the world use Microsoft's products. They were just able to integrate the AI into all their products. Hey, your team is already using Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Well, for an extra $10 a month, we'll give you Copilot. They'll be able to use AI now. And hey, even better, we're going to put Copilot directly into Excel. We're going to put it right into Outlook. They'll be way more productive. Okay. This works. This is the model that everyone is chasing. Microsoft has a blowout year in 2025. Revenue up 18%, profit up 24%. All right. Azure revenue, 34% increase year over year. Okay. Microsoft didn't just bet on AI. It bet on the right people, the right partnerships, and the right platform. And it's paying off in billions. So Microsoft's going to take over the world, right? Not so fast. All right. We've been here before. Okay. Big technology, big hype, big Wall Street bubbles, and then it never pans out. All right. I said earlier, remember self-driving cars? Well, remember flying cars? By 2020, 5 years ago, we were supposed to be flying around. Nobody was going to be driving anymore. All right. Reality, dude, it's too expensive, too hard to control. And oh, yeah, by the way, it's not safe having people fly cars over your head in case they crash into the ground. Remember those self driving cars? Well, guess what? No matter how hard they work on the self driving technology, okay, unless it's in a controlled environment where they have LiDAR scans of the entire neighborhood of the city, or, it's just the fact, okay? The technical challenges is rare events like construction zones or animals jumping into the road like a deer running into your way is too hard for a computer to understand, just like it's too hard for people to understand. Okay. I talked earlier about Napster. Man, Napster was the best. Okay. But remember, Napster was going to kill music. Oh, musicians aren't going to be able to tour anymore. No one's going to buy CDs. Nonsense. We got Apple Music, we got Spotify, we got podcasting industry. All right, musicians survived. Taylor Swift has $3 billion. Everyone's good. Okay, remember the BlackBerry? Nobody can beat the BlackBerry. The CrackBerry. Obama loved his BlackBerry. It had buttons. The iPhone changed that. All right, and then Google Glass. Okay, we're back there again with Meta's specs or glasses or whatever they're doing now, but Google Glass, it was weird. Remember Segways? Nobody was going to walk. We were going to zoom around on Segway scooters. Yeah, dude, it was awkward. Okay. And today we're here with crypto and NFTs. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Um, I like to pay in cash still. All right. And now that brings us to, this, the ending of this story. The ending of the creation of this AI is actually the start of the next chapter. And the next chapter is what we're going to talk about in upcoming videos, because this is part of a series, the AI classroom, how to future proof your teaching. Okay. And it's exactly what it sounds like here. Okay. All of this AI has now led to a lot of really concerning issues. We've had a spike in unemployment. The entry level job market has disappeared. Okay. White collar jobs are disappearing. And things that used to be done by a lot of people and a lot of computers are being done just by writing a prompt. Now, we talked about YouTube and Google purchasing YouTube to create the feed and to create billions of dollars in advertising revenue. But man, YouTube is the gift that keeps on giving. All right. And here's why. See, Google has something called VO3. It is their AI video generating platform. It's an AI video generator, and it can produce realistic video. Now, at its very worst, it can do B-roll footage. Okay. Right? I lived in Brooklyn, New York. I know how much it takes to film shows in New York City. Okay. Homeland on Showtime was recorded in my neighborhood. Okay. Hundreds of people, food trucks, all right, film crews, catering, okay, closing down streets, police, security. All these people aren't going to have jobs because now it can be done with a prompt. All right. But it's not about people losing their jobs. People are accusing Google and people are accusing Google of using YouTube to train its VO platform. Well, if it did that, that could be one of the biggest cases of copyright infringement in the history of mankind. Oh, wait, no, that had already been done. Okay. That was done the minute that ChatGPT and OpenAI took all the data on the internet and used it to train its model. Well, don't you think the New York Times wants a kickback or something for using its articles to train these models? They fact check twice. The New York Post doesn't fact check at all. Seems like if you're using the New York Post to build an algorithm, might not be as accurate. Okay. So now we're going to start to get into the other issues with AI. Okay. Is it copyright infringement? Okay. What happens to the people's jobs? And we'll talk about that as we move on. So to wrap up this video, here's my neural nugget. Okay. This is an awesome technology. Even if AI stops at this point, the way it makes people more productive at work is going to be great. Who knows how this plays out? Maybe we will just go down to a 20-hour work week and keep our salaries. Okay. Who knows? But here's what I like to say. It hasn't proven anything yet. Okay. It's been out there and it's made us more productive. But the idea that this is going to take away everybody's jobs and change the world, well, it hasn't done that yet. And as we have learned from self-driving cars, The technology is a lot harder to prove out in the real world than it is in the fake world. So thanks for watching this video. And remember, you can find the PDF of the content in the video description so you can create as many assignments as you want using the content. Thanks, everyone.